I'm Alex Sabio, married father of four here in Southern California. I love short-term rentals, and we have scaled our business to hotels. So that's kind of what I'm focusing in on. I still have my W-2 job. Not sure how much longer, fingers crossed. So I'm a respiratory therapist, and I love helping healthcare workers.
Awesome. Hey everyone, I'm Savannah. I'm a registered nurse. I live up in Northern California. I just moved up here from Southern California and I just turned my primary into a midterm rental. So I'm super excited to hear from Dr. Rachel today all about it. But I invest primarily in syndication. So I partner primarily with other healthcare professionals who want to invest completely passively in real estate. And we go out and buy apartment complexes together. Really on fire for sharing this information with the healthcare community because we do work so hard for our money. So it's a passion that Alex and I share and really the foundation of building this group. So with that, happy to bring another healthcare professional to the house today to share her strategy in short-term rentals. So I will kick it over to Dr. Rachel Gainsbrugh. Did I say that right?
That was perfect, actually, Savannah. Totally nailed it. So hello, everyone. I used to say I'm a healthcare professional by day, real estate investor by night, but it's like full-time real estate investor, content creator, educator in this space, which I'm super blessed to be able to do. And that's primarily because of real estate. That's how it all started for a lot of us. I started off with a short-term rental, midterm rental hybrid back in 2019. And because of the numbers, and that's the thing, once the numbers get out there, you get a little bit of recognition and notoriety. So AirDNA saw the numbers, sent a casting crew to reach out to us, and we ended up featured on Netflix for our midterm rental and got a cash offer on a property that we purchased for $460,000 less than a year later for $770,000, which is appreciation galore. And so I know that's something that everyone here is interested in, not just cash flow, but cash on cash return and appreciation is definitely, I think, the cherry on top outside of the tax benefits that we're able to take advantage of. So just really, really grateful to be here today. I'm grateful to be amongst other healthcare professionals who are looking to leverage different strategies to move forward with real estate and kick burnout to the curb. So thank you again, Alex. Thank you again, Savannah, for having me, for creating this amazing platform. I love that you advertised our actual masterclass title, which was how to generate up to 22K in monthly revenue with midterm rentals. I'm going to share my screen in a second, but I want to give a little bit of context of where that number came from. It actually came from our own experience with having generated that amount with our midterm rental. But ever since then, I'm actually thinking that we might need to change it a little bit because we've had students who have exceeded that, 37,000 a month with midterm rental, which is really, really hard to believe. So let me go ahead and share screen and we will dive right in.
Yeah, for everyone here, Alex and I were just saying we haven't had a meetup in a while. So if you're here joining us for the first time, welcome. Drop what city you're from in the chat. It's really helpful to kind of network and see what markets everyone's in, even if that's not where you're investing. But just, say hi and drop in the chat. And if you guys have any questions while the presentation's going on, drop them there and then we'll get to them at the end. And then we are recording this. It'll be both on my YouTube and Alex's YouTube.
Fantastic. And so, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we are talking tonight how to generate up to $22,000 a month with midterm rentals. Our primary focus tonight is going to be the homeowners insurance strategy. As most of us in the group are medical professionals, we're all aware of short-term rentals associated with travel nurses, specifically midterm rentals associated with travel nurses. And I just want to share with you some of the insights that we learned over the years leveraging the homeowner insurance strategy and what we're seeing in the marketplace as we continue to serve displaced individuals. And so one thing that I have done in the past in order to ascertain whether or not a market has a demand for midterm rentals, although I'm kind of biased, I feel like most markets do, especially when you're talking about natural disasters as well as accidental disasters. It literally is happening everywhere. But one thing that I do, a step by step of is really taking a look at the platforms that will facilitate those transactions. And so I'm more of a corporate housing by owner girl. And I know Furnish Finder is making great strides to get into the space of the larger properties with the 4+ bedrooms and so on and so forth. So all you would have to do to identify whether or not your market has a demand for midterm rentals as it relates to this specific strategy, the homeowner display strategy, where you're looking to host families and larger units, is do a Google search for CHBO. And what you're looking for really is this website here, Corporate Housing by Owner. And once you go to Corporate Housing by Owner, all you have to do is enter your city. So here You can see Boise, Idaho, and then you would ignore arrival and departure, and then just select submit. And once you have done so, what you're looking for is kind of a little bit of a density of properties in the area. As you can see here, we have a little cluster of properties. And that tells you right there already there are people who are hosting 30-day stays in your market. Again, this is a platform that caters primarily to 30-day stays, similar to Furnish Finder, but again, not as, I would say, not as economical. Is that a good word to leverage? Economical.
It's expensive.
Right. As Furnish Finder in terms of, what the clientele is going to demand. So how many here, when you think of midterm rentals, you think of travel nurses? Put a yes or a 1 in the chat. If you're constantly thinking of travel nurses, put a 1 in the chat. And how many of you, when you think of travel nurses, you're thinking, okay, my sister's travel nurse, full disclosure, you're thinking, okay, they're going to want like a bargain basement deal.
Cheap. Just put it that way. They're cheap.
I'm trying not to use the word cheap. Right? And so as investors, that might not fly if our midterm rental or short-term rental revenue is less than or equal to our long-term rental potential. So it's like, okay, what's happening right now? Like we're walking into a situation upside down. And so again, this is why I like using corporate housing by owner. The revenue potential is a little bit higher. You have a different set of clientele. When you go on Furnish Finder, you're typically dealing with someone looking for a bargain. Although, full disclosure, Brian, the CEO of Furnish Finder, he's making great strides. So now I see the parameter, like the upper limit parameter, instead of being like $1,600 up to $2,500, he has a 10,000 plus, which makes sense for, your 4, 5, 6 bedroom homes. So really excited about that. All right. So the next thing that I do is I can, and these are 2 free tools in terms of how you can leverage it in search. So the next thing you can do is go ahead and go to just the AirBNB native app or the, desktop website, and pretend like you're an end user again, put in the city, so I'm in Boise again, and then enter in your projected length of stay. So right now we are in September, put in like November 1st to December 16th, something like that, right? A little bit far out. And then select a property that has quite a few reviews, like this one here has 105. And what you're doing is you want to click on that just to see this particular flag that was added on a little bit earlier this year. And so these flags that say long stay, this is an indicator to you and to me that this is a market that hosts 30-day plus stays. So one of the number one questions I get asked is, well, how do I know a 30-day stay is viable for my market? Well, these are 2 ways that you can identify that quickly. So with that, guys, those are definitely free. Check it out for yourself. It's not free to list on corporate housing by owner, but it's definitely free to search. And then of course it's free to search on Airbnb, but you do pay the price and fees when you are listing. So hopefully that helps someone today. Just a quick, free and easy way to identify whether or not the market you're interested in investing in already is hosting midterm rentals. And so with that, I often offer a lot of free content on Instagram. I know Alex was talking about that a little bit earlier. If you guys want to give me a shout out on Instagram, I would love to follow you and stay connected. Okay,
look
so why
you look great in all those pictures, man.
Oh yeah, those are the good pictures. Those are the good pictures. Look.
Wow.
Meanwhile, back
I
at the
need your
ranch,
photographer. Yeah. Look at that.
I know. But why do I love this particular strategy? Breaking news, the homeowners insurance companies, they saw a surplus of $1.03 trillion at the end of 2021. Okay, for those of you sitting in the back, come back to me if you're multitasking. The homeowners insurance market saw a surplus of $1.03 trillion in 2021 in surplus. So for me, I'm like, okay, how do I tap into some of that, instead of my sister who's like, Rach, I would rather sleep in my BMW than rent from you. I get it, sis. I'd rather sleep in your BMW than rent from me. I want to work with those who are seeing trillions of dollars of surplus. And that is the beauty of working with other corporations, business to business. And so keep that at the forefront of your mind. And so a little bit about me, for those of you who we haven't yet met, I'm a pharmacist by training. My husband, Jesse, is a retired psychotherapist. Our boys, Ethan and Luke. Ethan's now in high school, Luke's in middle school. These are our Dogs That Are a Hot Mess, Peggy Dash and Hopper. And yes, this is where Netflix was filming and featuring one of our luxury midterm rentals. And I call it luxury because the dollars are luxurious. But as far as the luxury in terms of the setup and the cost to invest in these particular properties, nowhere near as what you would consider a luxury or ultra luxury at all, which is great. And then this is where they flew us out to Albuquerque to complete the filming of our show. But of course, like many of you, I had gone through the ringer and back, but I was born in Haiti, raised in the inner city of Miami, got the doctorate, but the student loans were literally killing me softly. And so grateful to have found initially Dave Ramsey. He got me on the path, but then I kind of kicked the philosophy to the curb when I got into real estate investing. And so, yes, we have a ton of real estate debt, but good debt, in my opinion. Don't come for me. This is my opinion. I'm not a financial advisor. But all this to say that that's really the journey. And if it had not been for real estate, I really don't think I would have had the options that I have today. Fast forward to today. A few short years after starting our real estate journey, it's really been nothing short of amazing. Have had the great pleasure of co-authoring an amazing book with other hosts, being interviewed by Sharon Lecter, Amy Porterfield, running mastermind groups, and being featured in Forbes, all the things. But what excites me the most is I get to share with other busy burnt-out medical professionals how to leverage one or two properties, single-family homes, to really make a difference in their portfolio. And so one thing that I believe is if you are able to create a profitable midterm rental using this specific insurance strategy, I honestly feel it's one of the most powerful and strategic ways to make an impact, because you get to serve someone in your community, but you get to grow your income to just life-changing levels. And again, it's being really, really strategic with that. Okay, so let me dive into the tips. So tip number one, this strategy is powerful not only for the revenue potential, but also for regulatory constraints. So we were speaking a little bit earlier about New York. New York is really cracking down on AirBNB short-term rentals. And, there's a lot of buzz about it. The new regulations went into effect yesterday. And these are regulations where if you have a shorter than 30 stay, the host has to register with the city, owner occupied. They must be physically there in the property and share the living quarters. Reading a little bit through it, you can't have a locked interior bedroom doors. It's like, okay, I lock my office door, if I'm really trying to get things done. But yeah, it's quite restrictive, and a lot of people are up in arms. And so again, you want to begin with the end in mind when you're looking at investing in real estate. And this is kind of the framework that I look at, because I love being in markets where I have a hybrid. I can do short-term rentals, I can do mid-term rentals, but how do you know whether or not that is possible? And this is pretty much the step-by-step framework that I go to. Feel free to take a photo of it. I won't bullet you to death, but just know I don't love HOAs. I'm only in HOAs in areas where, it's vacation rentals and it's resort type. And most of the properties are actual short-term rentals, but I try to avoid HOAs at all costs. Outside of that, you can just do a simple Google search to look for the municipality code or the municode. And outside of that, I do call the county clerk's office if I'm not finding a lot of clarity. The county clerk's office often has documents that are in draft, and you kind of get a sentiment of the community of how they feel about short-term rentals. And that's important too, because oh my gosh, right? Community sentiment is huge when it comes to being able to operate. And so part of my buy box is I also like a little bit of elbow room. If I can get a half an acre, an acre property, for me, that's like chef's kiss for sure. But community sentiment does matter. Zoning department matters as well, because they're the enforcers, right? So you can be in one city and the rules change from street to street and from road to road. So something very important to know. So I've mentioned this quite a while. I know that everyone's talking about midterm rentals, travel nurses, and they're almost synonymous. And I know that, that's definitely been a staple in a lot of spaces, Facebook groups, conversations. But what I want people to be aware of is, midterm rentals was here before COVID, before the travel nurse demand was there. It was here long before that. You had academic housing, medical travelers, seasonal travelers, film and entertainment. And that's actually one of our secondary midterm rental strategies, film and entertainment. But due to the SAG-AFTRA strikes, those are impacted and those are down as well. But there are numerous reasons. According to Price Labs, this is data that we got from Price Labs, that the 28 plus day stay demand existed. And again, it was older than COVID, therefore older than travel nurses. And so what we're seeing now is that when it comes to the breakdown of the midterm rental demand, we're seeing more non-medical midterm rental demand than medical midterm rental demand. And who's to say what the swing is going to be in the next few months? Because I know there were some changes with what we're seeing with COVID, but non-medical demand, as of today, is outperforming medical midterm rental demand. And so, most notably, we're seeing insurance housing as one of the top contenders there. Outside of insurance housing, there's digital nomads, travel managers, corporate housing, athletes. Relocation housing, military housing, and traveling professionals. And so, for those of you who are here live with us, and those of you who are watching the replays, let me know in the comments what type of midterm rental guests are you seeing in your market? Are you seeing people relocating to your area? And I really think what I love about this strategy is it's almost like a team sport. With short-term rentals, there's a little bit of that cutthroat, like, oh my gosh, it's saturation, it's a race to the bottom, I'm going to drop my prices and win all the bookings. But with midterm rentals, it's a team sport because once you're booked, you're booked. And with insurance, you're booked for 4 months, 7 months, 11 months. And so it's like, okay, what do? You want to lean on your members inside of your community who are able to host at your same level. So I would love to know what you guys are seeing in your markets. If you're hosting midterm rentals, are you seeing athletes coming to the area? I know when we had our property in Tempe, Arizona, there was like MLB, there's a variety of midterm rental strategies out there, which is super, super exciting. So much so that we had a few months back, when was this? In February, beginning of the year. Oh my gosh, we had the midterm rental versus short-term rental smackdown, where we got an opportunity to connect with Jesse Vasquez, who's like travel nurse, but he does the B2B version of it. And yeah, by the way, most of these bodies are not ours. I think Danny Rusting, I think this might be his actual body, but nevertheless, my kids were tricked for sure. They're like, Mom. I was like, yes. Anyway, but Jesse Vasquez, he has the midterm rental with travel nurses, but he does a business-to-business model where he goes directly to the stakeholders and connect with them. Ziana and Sarah, they're the authors of 30 Day Stay. They do the travel nurses primarily, and they actually focus directly to the end user, with the end user, the nurses. Now, Noble Crawford, oh my gosh, he's cracked the code on the government contracts. He and his students, they won like I want to say a $17 million contract a couple of months ago, and now they're working on a $70 million contract, which is insane. But he does government contracts, so you have to register with the people and have cybersecurity and all the things. And as far as I can tell, because I remember when they started working on it, he started maybe 8 months ago. So it is like, it's definitely a commitment. And I don't see her here, but we also had Amanda, the traveling realtor. She was an add-on, and she focuses primarily on relocation housing. And so as a realtor, she's taking advantage of not only helping individuals purchase a home in her market, but she's helping them rent out midterm rentals while they're there, looking for the right place to stay. So it's a win-win-win all around. But for me, again, I absolutely love insurance housing because I have found a way to ensure that we're able to cash flow at the highest level while working the least amount. Because as you guys saw in a little bit earlier, I have the 2 boys, I have a whole husband, I've got 2 dogs, well, 3 dogs, and all the things. So at the time I was working full time, and I decided, I need to figure out a strategy on how to get back my return on energy and not just exchange my hours for dollars or buy myself into another job. And so once I discovered it again, wrote an article for Bigger Pockets. As you all know, Blackstone is raising billions of dollars focused on rental, housing, and hospitality. So the writing is on the wall for sure. But again, ROE, return on energy, is important for me. It's just as important as ROI. So when it comes to the midterm rental strategy, the insurance strategy, hands down, is my absolute favorite. Okay, so my question to you, those of you who are here with us live or watching the replays, let me know in the chat, have you had the opportunity to host an insurance policyholder client? Put a 1 in the chat if you've received just an inquiry. Put a 2 in the chat if you have gotten it booked, which is amazing. Congratulations to you. And put a 3 in the chat if you have been able to get booked at your short-term rental rates, so at the higher rates, which is so doable and so possible. Let me know in the chat, and then I'm going to dive into tip number 2. We're back to pay. How much can they really pay? And so I remember one of the members of our community, she's a physician out of New York. She goes, oh my gosh, there are 5 digits. So she had been receiving short-term rental bookings that were, 3-digit payouts, 4-digit payouts. And with this strategy, they were seeing 5-digit payouts. So all this to say that, yeah, their pockets are quite deep and they're able to pay out a larger amount. And so let's talk about it. Disasters displaced more than 3 million Americans in 2022, according to Scientific American. And when you're displaced from your home, unfortunately, what gets activated is a part of your insurance policy that is called loss of use. And what is loss of use? It's pretty much a type of coverage that protects the policyholder in the event that the property becomes unusable or uninhabitable due to damage. And the damage that we see most commonly are fire. Did you guys see that fire tornado the other day? Like, seriously? It was in Louisiana. Fire tornado. I was watching it on YouTube. Did you see that, Alex? I'm sorry to get distracted, but I'm like,
I didn't see it.
No.
Yeah, fire tornado. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so weird weather anomalies. So you have fire, you have flood, you have fallen tree. And all of these things can actually be natural disasters, or they can be accidental. Someone set, your house on fire, a kid, or a water pipe that bursts. That's the most common accidental disaster that we see is water pipe that bursts, and fallen tree is another one that we're seeing, whether it's accidental or due to weather. So let me know in the chat, guys. Have you or someone you know or love encountered any of these types of hazards? And if so, if they have homeowners insurance, hopefully they do, what kicks in is their loss of use, okay? So 80% of our midterm rental bookings with the insurance are families dealing with one of these specific incidents that are accidental, and about 20% are weather related, okay? So fortunately for us, we invest in locations that aren't severely susceptible to extreme weather conditions. So that's something that I keep in the forefront of my mind as well, unless it's like, the dream beach house situation, but we'll talk about that later. But what is that portion of the insurance that covers you for loss of use? It's called Coverage D. And again, Coverage D covers a variety of hazards. So come back to me if you're multitasking, because this is very important. I get this question all the time with understanding how much the insurance can really pay for temporary housing. So Coverage tells you how much that bucket or that pot of gold is for midterm rental or temporary housing, okay? So it covers for any of these hazards for the most part. I would say mold might be the exception in most states. I think North Carolina and New York are the only ones that cover for mold. But understanding Coverage is really going to help you to determine really and defend your rate, okay? So Coverage is typically 20 to 30% of the rebuild value of the actual structure. So for example, if you purchase your house for $500,000 and the actual structure costs $400,000, just for the sake of easy numbers, because there's land, there's the property, whatever the depreciable asset is. So $400,000 is the actual structure rebuild value. And so if 20 to 30% of that dwelling is the Coverage D amount, or the amount that you could use for temporary housing, we'll split it in what I call it my rule of 25. Rule of 25 states that 25% of the actual structure is the amount of revenue that you have available for Coverage D. And so $400,000 rebuild value, that means you have $100,000 per year per claim that you can use for temporary housing. And so that clues you in as the host of the ceiling, like how much money can this person or how much money is budgeted for this person to stay with me, okay? So we look at that. We look at other parameters as well, such as market supply. We definitely want to stay competitive, but we're not going to accept lowball offers, which is what the insurance is going to ask you to do, is accept lowball offers. As a matter of fact, I love this because one of our members is like, they attended our program and the insurance told them, oh, their budget was only $4,000, but because she knew what Coverage D was, she's like, no, thanks. $7,200 is my number. And she got it approved. And we see that again and again. And here's some more receipts, $29,160 for 78 days. Lakita, she also had a 3-month with option to extend. And what I love is oftentimes they will book for 1 month and they will ask you, do I have an option to extend? And one of the biggest mistakes that I see hosts, encounter is they'll block out 1 month. And so we got to think about it as though we're investors. How many times have you seen anything get fixed in 1 month? Like, I'm talking about water damage. I'm talking about fire damage, right? So water damage at minimum 3 months, fire damage at minimum 6 months is what I've seen in my market. Maybe my contractors are slower than your contractors, but even if they ask you for 1 month, go ahead and block it out for 6 months and then play it by ear, because typically they need to give you like a 30 to 60 day notice to notice to vacate, so you'll know ahead of time. But don't allow shorter bookings to start eating away at your calendar, and then you're going to miss out on this lucrative booking as well. And so this is Miss Lakita. She's a nurse manager for United Health, nurse case manager United Health, and she was able to net $4,800 a month. And she had I think it was 4 months initially, and then they extended for 6 months. And we just have a whole lot of amazing stories. Ruben, he's a staple in our community. He got his $40,000 booking just 1 month after, going through our workshop, but they went ahead and extended. So I think this contract ended up going to something like $57,000, something along those lines. Julia, another pharmacist, mailbox money. I absolutely love it. And so these are just, again, this tip that I really want to impart upon you is their pockets are deep. Okay, their pockets are deep. Please do not let the insurance lowball you. It is their job, right? They're a fiduciary. They're looking out for the interests of their company, but it's important for you to look out for your own interests as well, okay? Just like anything, right, there are benefits and risks with this strategy. So I still think that this is one of the best strategies around. So direct bookings is definitely a pro. We're able to leverage short-term rental rates. Some of our members have exceeded their STR rates with these longer bookings with less hassle, which is awesome, less turnover. You can avoid a lot of regulatory restrictions with this strategy as well. And these guests are low maintenance, which is amazing. What are the challenges, or what are the cons per se? Oh, excuse me. One is initially when they reach out to you, it's a little bit high touch. It's not like instant book, you turn it on and that's it, right? Not typically. It doesn't work that way. You do want to follow up. The fortunes are made in the follow-up. Calendar stewardship. Again, I mentioned a little bit earlier, you don't want to necessarily, have your calendar so open that you're hosting guests for 2 night stays, 1 night stay, and so on and so forth. And what tends to happen there is, when this guest is looking to extend, the struggle that I've heard from the temporary housing agency is when the guest is looking to extend, you're like, oh, can you go and stay somewhere else and then come back to me? It looks like amateur hour, and it's just not a good vibe at all. So calendar stewardship is something that I think if you do that well, you'll be in great shape. And I'm waiting to hear back from Amanda, because when it comes, Amanda Hahn, Alex, Amanda, she is your strategist as well. When it comes to leveraging this strategy, I want her to give us a little bit more clarification, because one thing that we potentially may miss out on is the bonus depreciation cost segregation benefits of this year. But there is a way around that, I suspect, and stay tuned for that. It has to do with treating the property as more of a hospitality stay. So, and one of the biggest things that we want to leverage as medical professionals is not necessarily how much money we make all the time. It's like a levers, right? It's how much money we get to keep. And part of that is really tapping into our advanced tax strategy. So definitely make sure that you're working with a tax strategist to take advantage of what's available out there to you, especially if you're a short-term rental host. And the reason why I have it in this con section, because it's not as easy to leverage this specific year's 80% bonus depreciation for midterm rentals, because there's a threshold, right? So you want to keep a minimum length of stay of about 7 days or less to take advantage of it. But there may be some ways around that as well. So it's not like a surefire thing. If you're just straight up short-term rental, you can really lean into a cost segregation study to get your bonus depreciation. But when it comes to midterm rentals, that's a whole different ballgame because your midterm rentals are going to be closer to your 30-day stay average, if not more. And so one thing we do make sure that we're looking at is, what is our average length of stay to make sure that we're, taking advantage and we are in that particular threshold there. Okay. So secret number 4, again, I mentioned a little bit earlier, is that calendar. How do you stay visible? So I get asked the question all the time, Rachel, I'm not getting bookings from insurance companies, and all I have to do is look up someone's calendar where I am pretending to be an end user trying to book for 30 days. Well, if I look on your calendar tonight and I try to book a 30-day stay, will you even show up? Will you be visible? And so, no offense, but the reason why a lot of members are not able to take advantage of the strategies just because their calendar is out of sync. They're not available. So one of the biggest strategies that we use is really a stay restriction strategy. So if I have a 2-night booking, I'm willing to accept that in the next 7 to 10 days or so, but I'm not going to accept a 2-night booking further out for a property that I want to leverage primarily as a midterm rental. For instance, if someone's trying to book 2 nights in October, in November, and December, we leverage tools that we have inside of our dynamic pricing price labs to add an incredible surcharge. I'm talking like 600% surcharge to deter people from booking for 2 nights. And then I want those longer stays to be accessible to this clientele, because that is my primary focus. Okay, so be thinking about that. It's as simple as your calendar is out of sync. That's why no one's booking with you. No offense, but that's oftentimes the truth. And so speaking more about visibility, okay, so let's talk about what a temporary housing agency is. So say you're thinking about Progressive Insurance or Allstate Insurance or State Farm Insurance, right? These are companies that are insurance companies. They have actuarial people and adjusters and that kind of thing. They don't have real estate, nor do they have access to real estate. So when it comes to helping their policyholders find housing, they outsource that to a third-party vendor. And those third-party vendors are called temporary housing agencies, okay? So just wanted to make sure that I'm defining that. I know that some people just think the insurance is finding housing. I'm just gonna go to Allstate. No, Allstate doesn't have access to housing. It's not them. They outsource, they stay in their lane, right? Which is something that a lot of us with shiny object syndrome struggles with. They stay in their lane and they go and find a company that specializes in temporary housing agency, temporary housing, finding and curating temporary housing for their policyholders. And the number one temporary housing agency in North America is called ALE Solutions. So they are national, okay? So we have national temporary housing agencies that you can list on for free. And then you have local temporary housing agencies that you can list on as well, okay? So those are the two that you really want to make sure you're listing on those platforms to get that ease of bookings, ease of conversations. I'm not a cold caller. It's not my lane. Maybe it will be one day, but that's not the game that I play. So as long as I'm listing on those temporary housing agency platforms, we get a steady stream of leads via email, via text message as well. The other places that I like to list my property on is corporate housing by owner. The agencies are looking there as well. And then the other platforms that I list as well is Airbnb, Vrbo, Furnish Finder. And the reason for that is because I'm going to be honest. Okay. I may encounter a disaster. I may be displaced from my home, but I'm still bougie, right? I'm homeless, but I'm bougie. Like, listen, don't just put me anywhere. So if that's how I am, imagine how other homeowners are too. So they're looking for a place and they can advocate on their own behalf. So where are they looking? Well, the Google of all temporary housing, short-term, midterm rental, the Google for people when they think of, I need to find a house, is that's furnished, is Airbnb. Right. So the end user is looking there too. So you want to put your best foot forward on Airbnb so that when the end user finds you, you can say, oh, let me speak with your temporary housing agent and, make that magic happen that way. Other places are just other local partners, so if Alex and I are in the same town, Savannah are in the same town, we each have property. Guess what? When one is booked, that's it. So we want to lean on each other locally and say, hey, do you have availability? Do you have availability? There's nothing better than passing on these really highly lucrative leads to, members in your network, in your local community. I personally haven't had any luck working with insurance adjusters. I know 2 members of our community that has, okay? So I've reached out to insurance adjusters. It's kumbaya. Yeah, we're going to help each other and we're going to love on each other. Yeah. No, it's never happened for me. So for those of you who think I'm going to go ahead and reach out to all the insurance adjusters, it just hasn't happened for me personally. Not to say it won't happen for you. And of course, now that we're teaching this more and more to our community and we're seeing the impact, the ability for our members to have calendars that are nearly fully occupied, they're generating an incredible amount of revenue, and they're helping someone in their community. We opted to build our own community with our own website, and last week we launched our own NTR network, OTA, so to speak. It's a baby OTA, so we're working on it and we're excited about it. But ours are specialized in single family homes, larger single family homes that are open to hosting pets, and some of them are accessible because here's the deal. Only 30% of landlords and hosts are willing to host pets. And guess what? These families, like 90% of them have like 2 or 3 dogs. They're not going to board their pets for 6 months. So if you're not thinking about being pet friendly, you're leaving a ton of money on the table. Okay. But when it comes to working with a lot of these temporary housing agencies, their first go-to is to work with the REITs, right? They have contracts with the REITs, and they're able to work with the REITs, and the REITs are able to work with rental centers and rental furniture companies and stand up a property in just a few days. But what increases visibility for us again is that we do not necessarily focus on like a 1 or 2 bedroom so that we're competing with REITs. We like the bigger homes, the 4 bedrooms, the 5 bedrooms. You're not going to find that in a REIT. So that's how we're standing out from the crowd, and we're like really carving out our own niche, so to speak. Okay, so these are just some examples of homes that we have in our portfolio that we're leveraging. These are regular homes. This is us on Netflix. This is one of the members of our community. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it. And I have a masterclass coming up end of the week if you guys want to join us and dive a little bit deeper. And yeah, so that's all I have for you guys. And feel free to drop any questions that you have in the chat. I will be in there answering questions throughout the week. And again, Savannah, Alec, I'm super, super honored to be here with you guys. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, we'll share the link in the description on YouTube and also in the comments below. So Dr. Rachel, thank you so much. I have a question though. So there's like sites like AirBNB and like Data Rabu, that's a free one, STR Insights. There's all of these different tools. Like a friend of mine was asking me, well, how much can my property generate? I'm like, has anyone came up with something yet? I mean, other than like looking on Zillow and seeing what the monthly rent is, and then maybe adding a little bit of percentage on top of that.
Yeah, and so for me, I haven't seen anyone come up with anything. I will tell you that I'm working on something that is in the beta phase. But
Oh,
yeah,
leveling up again. Look at you.
data is king, my friend, right? But at the end of the day, what I'm seeing is using the metric that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Like you have a property, you have a good idea of what that structure is valued at. It's almost like you're doing a cost segregation study in your mind,
Yeah.
right? So the rebuild value of that, take like 20%, and that'll give you an idea per claim per year what you should expect to generate, and that's going to be your ceiling. And then you want to compare it against a few other platforms, like you said, Zillow, Airbnb. What are the 30-day stays going for Airbnb for a comparable property, and just kind of play it by ear. But again, if you're in a market though, Alex, that has like a significant surplus of 30-day units that are available, you want to be a little bit more competitive. But if you're in a market, listen, there's like an 11 bedroom house in our community that caught on fire. Well, that family had no choice but to stay in our 6 bedroom. So I get to name my price, right? So that's the situation when you set yourself up to be much more different than the competition. You have an opportunity to name your price, and it's lovely.
Right. Yeah, that'd be exciting to see. And also the thing I like, for those of you watching this replay, Dr. Rachel has created like a community where, I mean, it's the abundance mindset, right? Like, yeah. Oh, I'm booked. I'm going to hook Alex up. Can you call Alex over here? Because and so you guys just share amongst each other. I love that.
So do I. And that's the big difference that I've seen with short-term and mid-term rental. It's like, you can kind of take a breather. The competition is not as steep.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. I've already had multiple people reach out to me asking for the recording and the PowerPoint. So yeah, lots of good follow-up. Reach out to her. This was really good information in there. So thank you everyone for hanging out with us. And yeah, we'll see you next month.